We always have 8 minutes for somebody. Hold space for your friends. Don't judge. Don't try and offer advice. Just listen. Sometimes we just need a sounding board to get information out of our head. The world's on fire right now, and a lot of people are really suffering. Like, I couldn't even find my voice. I put on my mask. I went to work every day. I just shut down. So if you see somebody, spend a little extra time with them and find out what's going on. Hold space. Hold space for those people in your life. Say hello to strangers. Make people feel seen and heard. That's going to help us as a community to bring down those suicide numbers. Suicide affects 93 million people a year. The numbers are staggering. Work is hard, life is hard, and the problem that employees have right now is they not only have their day-to-day stress, but there's a lot of external factors coming in now that can make your job even harder. Making sure that companies have like the crisis hotline numbers. Pick up the phone and call 988. I will scream that number from the top of every hill. Because I was there. I did none of those, right? Because number one, I wasn't taught that. Nobody's taught in school how to deal with your mental health. Nobody.
On this episode of Through the Trauma podcast, we are going to broach a very, very serious topic. We are going to talk about suicide. There is a suicide prevention hotline and crisis line. It's 988 if you are struggling through suicidal ideations or if you are struggling with suicide. I want you to keep in mind that suicide is the 11th leading cause of death in the United States. That's one death every 11 minutes, and that was in 2023. We are now in 2025, and I don't have the statistics for 2025, but I can tell you those numbers are staggering. So if you are struggling, please reach out to someone. 988 is a great resource for you. Please do not underestimate the power of just speaking to someone. The world needs you. We need you. And you have a purpose in this life. So I beg you, if you're struggling through this, reach out to someone.
An exploration of trauma, transformation, and triumph. Your healing starts here.
And we are back with another episode of Through the Trauma podcast. And today I have a very special guest, Miss Gretchen Schozer. Gretchen is an amazing soul. We were talking a little bit before we started the recording, and she's just full of so many resources and things. And I want to talk a little bit about her. She really is the heart behind vulnerability, resilience, and empowerment. And she has quite the story that she's going to share with us today that's impacting so many people. She's a dedicated advocate for the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. And she co-hosts an award-winning mental health podcast, which has just helped her really deepen her understanding and the therapeutic power of shared stories. So, Gretchen, gosh, it's such an honor to have you on my show.
I'm so honored to be here. I am super excited.
I am so excited to get into your story. But before we do that, is there anything I missed or anything else you'd like to share with my audience?
My bio pretty much says it all. I've been put through the ringer, but I came out okay on the end.
And now you're living to empower and impact other people through your story. And I do want to hear more about your story. I know we were talking before we started recording, and I had to stop because I was like, all of these things need to go in the recording. This stuff is so good that we're talking about. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your story?
Sure. So on Christmas Day 2022, I had a severe mental health breakdown. And I'll just preface that. The last quarter of 2022 was the hardest quarter of my life. It was even harder than when my mom passed away. I just had a lot of stuff going on. And I'm a true extrovert and a true empath. Imagine that. So what happened was my wife got shingles for 8 weeks. And if you've ever been around anyone that had shingles, there's absolutely nothing you can do for them. Around the same time, I was approached at work to take a early retirement. And in all ways, that should be a good thing. But at the time it happened, I was 59 and a half. And, there's ageism in the workforce. And so I was thinking about, well, how am I going to get a job? So that happened. And then I hit and killed a deer. And then I got catfished. The FBI ended up getting involved. A really good friend of ours passed away unexpectedly. And then my father-in-law passed away 2 days before Thanksgiving, through some holiday depression, some seasonal depression, and wake up on Christmas Day, and all I wanted to do was go for a drive. Well, I live in upstate New York, and the weather up here was horrible. It was minus 22. I go out to get my car. My car didn't start. And I was like, well, hell, now what am I going to do? So I was so mad that I came back in the house, and I don't even think my wife knew I'd come back into the house. I just marched upstairs, and I was done. Like, I had now taken on everybody else's pain and grief and not taking care of myself, and I didn't really understand what was going on in my head because, my entire life, like, I'd been taught, you don't talk about what's going on, you just shove it down as far as it can go. I would go to work every day with a smile on my face, still cracking jokes. And like nobody knew how depressed I was. Nobody. So I go upstairs and I had a bottle of pills on my dresser. And I was like, maybe if I just take all of these and, life will be so much better. Like all the pain will stop. But then I had a thought about all the people that would be sad if I was gone. And I had remembered, I had read a couple of months ago, before that there was a 988 crisis line. And I was like, there's that tiny glimmer of hope that things might get better. So I ended up calling that 988. I'm alive today because of 988. The woman that answered that phone was the most compassionate person I've ever spoken to in my entire life. She gave voice to what was going on with me because, like I said, I didn't understand it. I didn't realize I was so depressed that I couldn't even function. And after that conversation, I had called and made a therapy appointment. And then I went down and talked to my wife. And we talked for like 3 hours. And I cried more that day than I'd cried my entire, probably in 4 or 5 years. The very next day, I opened up onto social media to let them know what was going on. I have thousands of friends, and not even my manager didn't know, my friends, my family, nobody knew how depressed I was. So I wanted to make people not feel so terrified and alone in their own journey as I felt in my own. So I put my social media posts out, and I got about 200 personal responses thanking me. Because now people didn't feel so terrified and alone in their own journey. And then, so that was one of my healers, was just sharing what was going on with me. And then I had my manager, who is she's actually the co-host on our podcast. We would call each other every morning and we would laugh about things you should never, ever, ever laugh about. But the laughter helped. Because when you get up and start laughing in the morning, it kind of changes the trajectory of the day. So if something bad's happening, you can just go back to that conversation you had in the morning about all the irreverent stuff that you laughed about. And so it was during one of those conversations, she was like, hey, we should do a podcast. I'm like, hey, yeah, sure, why not? So we released our first episode on February 14th, 2023. And the reason we chose that day was I had buried my mom in 1997 on Valentine's Day, and I wanted to change the trajectory of that day. And it was kind of awesome. So we didn't think anybody was going to listen to us, but, we fast forward to like April, and we got 10,000 downloads, and we were like trying to figure out like who's listening to us. But we had gotten some really good feedback from people saying that by me sharing my story and by sharing stories of other people going through mental crisis, it helped them to feel like they weren't alone in their own story, their own journey. And we give tips and tricks. And then, you fast forward to September of 2024, And we had won 2 awards. We won the People's Choice Award for Best Health Podcast, and then the Women in Podcasting Best Mental Health Podcast. We were completely blown away because, like I said, I'm in awe that people are listening to us. And then by the time December rolled around, we amassed over 1 million downloads, and we're listened to in over 60 countries. And I wanted to take all that pain and that I had in that last quarter of 2022 and really turn it into purpose. So in January of this year, January 2nd, I walked into work and I emailed it that I was quitting. And it took everybody by surprise. But I wanted to do something for myself. So at 61, I quit my corporate job. I'd been in corporate America for 45 years, and I opened up my own company. And it really focuses on the 2 things I'm passionate about: technology and mental health advocacy. And now I'm in a really good place, and I want people to see me as a story of hope, because I really, 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 really wanted to get better. I wanted to see what was on the other side. I wanted to help other people so they didn't feel as crappy as I did.
Touched on some very powerful things in there. So I don't really know where to start, except praise God for that helpline. I've interviewed some other people who've been, has struggled with suicide. I'm so thankful that there's a place that people can call for that, because suicide is a traumatic thing. And I think especially for the people that you leave behind that have so many unanswered questions. I don't know the actual statistics, but I do know that suicide has risen. During COVID, it rose. And then I think the statistics are still really high and on the rise for suicide. So it leaves people like yourself, like myself, like people who are doing stuff inside of mental health. Like, what can we do to help push that message that you're not alone? What can we do to help people see that there's hope on the other side of it? Because I know I was at a place in my life where I was suicidal at one time. And there's the thing about suicide is people don't realize that when you get to that place, everything seems hopeless. And sometimes hanging on by that one little thread of hope, like you had that one little thread of hope that if I call this hotline, they're going to offer me some type of advice. In my own situation, I had one little thread of hope. It was that I just couldn't do it because I had these 2 little animals that I didn't know who would end up finding my body. So it's a really dark place, and providing people that little strand of hope, or hopefully much bigger strand of hope, where they don't even have to move into that area of feeling that type of depression. What are your thoughts? I know you run a podcast yourself. Like, what are your thoughts about what can we do as a collective, as a culture and a society to help kind of lock arms with people that are in the midst of that type of depression and help them rise?
There's so much that goes into that. I can say it from an extrovert's point of view, because, as extroverts, we're really good at masking our emotions, right? Not a badge of honor, okay? And if you are an extrovert, stop. Start talking to people now. Part of it is being kind, right? Because you absolutely have zero idea what somebody's going through. Zero. Mm-hmm. If a friend reaches out to you, there's a great Simon Sinek video. It's called 8 Minutes. We always have 8 minutes for somebody. And, just hold space for your friends. Don't judge. Don't try and offer advice. Just listen. Sometimes we just need a sounding board to, get information out of our head. The world's on fire right now, and a lot of people are really suffering. And 988 is not just for suicide; it's for anybody in any type of crisis. So if you're not having suicidal ideation, but you're in crisis, call 988. They have all types of people that can help you get to next minute, the next day, the next hour. And I think the other thing that we all need to be cognizant of is, like, not everybody has money for therapy. Not everybody has a community. Not everybody has, the ability to get outside and enjoy some nature. But if you have a friend that is in crisis and they call you, make the time to talk to them. Don't keep pushing it off. Sometimes, like I said, we just need a sounding board. But for me, like, I couldn't even find my voice. I put on my mask. I went to work every day. I was at home. I just shut down. So if you see somebody that, like, if you have an extroverted friend and you see them shutting down, maybe, like, spend a little extra time with them and find out what's going on. Ask those questions that they honestly have to answer, not like our typical one-word answers. Yeah, we're living the dream. Like, if I've said that to you 14 times, am I really living the dream? I'm probably not. But, like, hold space. Hold space for those people in your life. Say hello to strangers. Make people feel seen and heard. And that's going to help us as a community to bring down those suicide numbers. And not just true suicide, but suicide attempts, because suicide affects 93 million people a year.
And is that those statistics, is that it affects being that the person who commits it or tries to commit it, and also the people that are around them?
And the people around them. The numbers are staggering, and since January 20th of this year, the numbers have skyrocketed.
Yeah, I mean, the world is here in America. You're in the States?
I'm in the States. Yep.
Yeah, here in America, things have gotten incredible, like more. It's like shaken up. I don't know. There's like a lot of shaking up, and I feel like there is an agenda to create division among people. When we were just talking before we jumped on and started recording, I believe there's an agenda to create division with people, to where now you get personally attacked and offended by certain things, or you get the belief systems that you think it has to be this way. And instead of, like, loving the person, it's like, oh no, you're categorized as this, so that's against me. It's like we identify with all these false narratives that then, I don't want to say they're false narratives. I mean, maybe they are truly our identity. I mean, take the race card, right? I am a white person, Some people are black people, like, that is your identity. But when there gets to be like they're plotting us against each other, that's when it becomes a problem to me. It's like, I can love people. I don't care if you have a different color of skin. I don't care if you have different views than I have. It doesn't affect the fact that I can still love you through that, or I can still be there for you as a friend or as a neighbor or just as a fellow human being.
Yeah, like I said, there's so much going on right now, and random acts of kindness go a really long way. Just being nice to people, and maybe not talking crappy to yourself. Okay, like, negative self-talk is the worst thing you can do right now. Call somebody.
That's a very valid point, because it's so easy to do. So I do want to get into this idea that you had this thing that you do with technology and mental health together, because I'm very curious your views on that, because again, we spoke a little bit about this, but technology can be used as a really good thing. I was meditating on this the other day, how the thing with technology is, now that I have TikTok and all the social media apps, right, I can find people that truly align with me. So now I'm not quite the weirdo. If I have a weird view of conspiracy stuff or whatever, I'm not a weirdo, because now I've met other people through social media that maybe in my family I'm a black sheep, but in the world, or like in my circle, it's like, oh no, we just jive. Yeah. So you meet your people, and that's a good thing. But then also
it can be a bad thing because we get hooked in this. And then you're an extrovert. I think I'm more of an introvert. I think I hide it well, but I love being alone. I love being in solitude. I like being to myself, you know. But I think sometimes as an introvert, it can be detrimental because I could stay home and look at TikTok all day and be happy and content with that. I mean, I don't, because I know it's not good for my mental health, but I'm curious your thoughts and your views on this, especially coming from someone who's an expert in technology and mental health coupled together.
So I spent 45 years in corporate America, and for most of my career, it was customer service and technology. And I really like talking to people. I really do. But a lot of times companies, when they are putting in changes, like whether it's manager changes or terminations or layoffs or introducing new softwares into their companies, they don't take the time to reach out to the employees that are going to be affected by this. And when they're going through that change management, they always focus on the future state. They don't focus on that transition state, and that's where people get really messed up. I've only worked for one company that did it right. Unfortunately, they got sold or acquired. And everybody I've worked for before that and after that didn't do it, right? Like, think about your employees' mental health when you're going through these changes. Because if you have anybody that has like Asperger's or is ADHD or is bipolar, once you move their cheese and you don't tell them why you're moving their cheese, they get messed up in the head, and then you wonder why, retention and morale and all the things that go into making your bottom line aren't being met. It's because you took that human element out of it. We're not robots, but we still need technology to do our jobs. But you throw that human element into it, and like that side of my company is, I'm working with, I want to work with people that, need to do like burnout assessments on their employees. Do you know why your employees are stressed out? Have you done any surveys? Have you talked to them? Giving them some tips and tricks on like how to start those conversations, because most managers don't get that kind of training. They leave that all to human resources, and it's not fair to them. It's not fair to the employees, right? Because the employees are working with these managers day in and day out. So those are things that I'm trying to incorporate into like my technology side of my practice. And, I implement software and do testing and training with customers, but always keeping that mental health aspect in there. Always asking them, are you guys okay with this? Like, do we need to slow down? Do you want me to show you this again? Like, have we had meditation? And I lead every call and make sure that there's some laughter in those calls. Yeah, because we all need to laugh, all right? Work is hard, life is hard, and the problem that employees have right now is they not only have their day-to-day stress, but there's a lot of external factors coming in now that can make your job even harder. And so, like making sure that companies have like the crisis hotline numbers on their electronic bulletin boards, giving them mental health days, things like that, things that it's super easy to incorporate into your business, but makes your employees a whole lot happier, because you still want to make your bottom line, but you can't make your bottom line if you don't have any employees.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like being productive. I know as someone who's like an entrepreneur, I've worked jobs, I kind of do all of the things, right? But I can honestly say too, like for myself, sometimes there's just days that I have to take. You just have to read your body and know that there's certain days that you have to take. And I know when I do take those days that there is certain productivity that comes after. So you take that break and then you can work twice as effectively when you go back into the work. So I think it is important for companies to take that into consideration.
And, you know, there's like so many tools out there. Like I use a lot of ChatGPT and, you know, different journal prompts, you know, doing a lot of surveying and looking out on LinkedIn and, you know, just seeing what like people are going through. And then like my own friend group, right? Like, what are they doing with their lives? Fortunately for me, like most of my friends are 20 years younger than I am. So I get what they're going through, and you know, I try and find ways to incorporate that into my business. Of like, you know, maybe there's an ebook we can create for employers, or maybe we can do like a workshop. You know, identify stress. Like, do you realize that your employees are all ready to like get up and walk out? Like a lot of them won't do that right now because the economy is horrible. But you know, it makes it hard to go to work every day if every single one of your employees is like checked out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I've worked at a place like that before where no one's happy. And it's grueling having to be there. In fact, I was just talking to my son about this earlier this week about how, you know, you are like the 5 people you surround yourself around the most. And it's very disheartening when you work a job because you're there 8 hours, you know, 5 days a week. And when you have to be there around these people, you kind of have no choice. That's a lot of time to spend around people that are all surrounded with disgruntled attitudes, you know, these point of views like the world is against me or I'm a victim. And then just the negativity. I worked in a place where there was constant negativity. And that's enough to push you into having a mental health breakdown. Because it's really hard. When I worked at this particular place, I would go in, and every day before I'd go in, it's like I would have to fix my mind on the positive things. Okay, let me try to go in here and be a light and not contribute to the darkness that's everybody's just breathing all this negativity. But it's really hard. It's hard to do that. And when you're in a job, like you said, especially that one you can't get out of, and our economy is getting worse. So it's not like you can just quit your job and then move on to something else, especially when you're trained in that particular skill. So what advice would you have for someone who say that they are on the brink of mental breakdown, but they're having to, it's like there's no way out. It's like every which way you turn, there's like you're hitting a wall. What advice would you have for those people?
So if you work for a company that has more than 50 employees, you qualify for FEMLA. So what I would suggest is that you contact your EAP. Most companies have an EAP, and I want to clarify that if you call the EAP, your company is not going to find out about it, right? It is confidential. It's confidential and anonymous, like calling 988. Then contact your leave coordinator and let them know that you need some time. We have that. We have FEMLA right now, and most times you will get paid up to 6 weeks. And during that time, you can heal. Other things you can do is take some PTO, because I'm going to tell you, as Americans, we don't take enough PTO, right? Take some time off. Like, go clear your head. If you live someplace and you like nature, get out into nature. Nature is a supreme healer. Also finding some way to laugh. You can find like a bazillion YouTube videos that will make you laugh. Find things that bring you joy, because that will help you get out of your own head. If we can find one thing that brings us joy every day, it makes all the other noise not so loud. I also found that, journaling. You can journal at your desk at work. Like, you could pretend to be on a call. I'm not saying that you should, but you can be on a call and you can start like writing down thoughts, right? It may not be something you go back and read later on, but you take those like negative, horrible thoughts out of your head and now they're on paper. And if you want to read it, great. If not, just throw it in the trash. because now it's out of your head. And like, don't dwell on the things that you can't really fix. If you have a problem, think in your head, hey, what's the solution? So that's a practice I made for myself, is for every bad thing that was going on in my life, I'm like, hey, what kind of good things are going on? If you are task driven and you can't get to your task list, write a list of the things you did accomplish during the day, right? Don't be so focused on the things that you have to get done. Think about the things that you did get done. That brings you a little happiness. Don't talk negative to yourself. Like, it doesn't help. It just exacerbates the situation. And if you feel comfortable with your manager, talk to your manager. Let them know what's going on, because you don't want to get to that point where you stand up in the middle of the office and you call everybody a bunch of effers, because that did happen to me. Okay, like, I got to the point where, like, I had 10 people coming at me at the same time for one thing, and I stood up in the middle of the office and called them the name. I immediately felt bad, but you don't want to get to that point. So take a deep breath. Like, if you feel like you're just gonna blow up, just take a minute, maybe get outside and take a deep breath. Walk away from that situation. It's a lot easier said than done, and you really have to put it into practice, but it's doable. And just remember, you're human, right? We're not robots. Everybody else thinks we're robots. You're not a robot. There's other things you can do too. Like, if I get really anxious, I stop and I list out 4 types of nuts. And that just helps me refrain where my head was, because it keeps me from saying things I probably shouldn't say to people.
That's good. And I just say one other thing just to add to that, which you kind of touched on later on, but that when you said, like, if you write down, you have these negative thoughts and you write down the negative thoughts and you can throw it away or whatever. I heard someone talk about this, and they said, like, if you have these negative thoughts or negative things you want to say about yourself or whatever, if you write, like, on one side those things, and then on the other side, what is the opposite of that thing, and then that's the thing you try to focus on the most. So it's so much power in reframing how you think and what you are saying to yourself. I've seen huge strides in my own life from doing that, and the power of positivity, it's real. And the mindset, what we are telling ourselves, like what we think, what we're saying, all of those things have so much power over our actions and what we end up doing and how we end up feeling about certain things, whatever that looks like. So there's a lot of power in what you just said. Like, that's so good.
It's 61 years of learning this. Okay.
Yeah, and you've done a great job learning it, and now you're communicating it to other people. There's a lot of power in that. And I guess my big question to you is, so if someone can learn to do this, how effective, going back to suicide, how effective do you feel like that is in preventing getting to the point of depression where you're in crisis or in a mental health breakdown or even suicidal?
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's a couple of things, right? For me, not only am I an extrovert, but I'm an empath. It's learning to put up that shield. Learning to set some boundaries. Like, I didn't learn how to set a boundary until I was almost 60. Putting things into practice, even little daily things, right? It could be 20 minutes of laughter in the morning, followed by something you're grateful for. It could be reaching out to a friend and just venting, because sometimes we just need to vent. It could be writing down your thoughts, journaling. Journaling is huge. I never journaled until I went through my crisis, and now I journal every day. It's giving yourself patience and grace. That was really hard for me to do. Like, I am very, very hard on myself. Well, I was. I'm not so much anymore. But patience and grace. Like, we all make mistakes. We all have bad days. Like, be nice to yourself. Being nice to yourself is the biggest thing you can do. And it's easy to get into those circles of, I suck, like, I just want to die, nobody loves me. Like, take that energy and put it into something that where you can actually make yourself feel better, right? Maybe step away from the alcohol or the marijuana or whatever you're doing. Step away from that so you have a clearer head when you're thinking about this. And this is going to sound corny, but, like, drink your water, okay? Like, water it's good for you, right? Fill your soul with things that make you feel good. Try and volunteer. If you want to volunteer, volunteering is really good. Like, go to a local animal shelter. There's nothing better than being around a bunch of furry animals to make you feel better. Just know that if you're at that point, that you are wanted, loved, and needed in this world, and that you're never alone. Even if you think that you are, you're never alone. Pick up that phone and call 988. I will scream that number from the top of every hill. Because I was there. I did none of those, right? Because, number one, I wasn't taught that. Nobody's taught in school how to deal with your mental health. Nobody. And if you are, you're very fortunate. But at my age, we were not taught any of this. We were like, suck it up and, just move on. And if you have a friend that is going through something, maybe don't tell them to suck it up, okay? Because that's not the right, not the right tone of what we need to hear in that moment. But for anybody that's, like, really, really, really struggling and you're at work, take some days off. It's good to get out of that toxic work environment and go back to the safety of your home. And if your home's not safe, go stay with a friend. If you don't have that, like I said, call somebody. Call a crisis line. There are so many people out there that are willing to help you. And they can help you kind of figure out your voice and your footing. With me, I had no idea. I couldn't find my voice. I couldn't find my footing. I couldn't tell anybody how depressed I was because I didn't understand what was going on in my own body.
And that is so true right there. I think that a lot of times people, that's the thing with being empathetic, is that we may not be able to understand exactly what's going on in someone's mind or body or what they're dealing with, but we can empathize with them. We can look at our own self and say, well, I've been through things that maybe it's not exactly the same thing as this person's going through, but I do know what it feels like. I do know what hopelessness feels like, or depression feels like, or sadness or grief. I know what those things feel like, even though the exact situation may be a little different or circumstances may be different. But I do want to touch on this because I'm also an empath, and it's a really hard thing to navigate. And I heard a friend of mine this past week, we were talking, and she's talking about how she's an empath. And I've never heard anyone describe it quite like this, but I thought it was so true. She said that when I go into a room, it's like sometimes people don't even have to say anything, but I absorb all of that energy. It's like if you're not an empath, you may not feel that, and you may not be able to understand how someone who is an empath, which for a long time I thought I was so mad that God gave me this ability. I'm like, why did you make me an empath? Like, I attract all these people that just want to take advantage of me and just want to use me. And it's like, until one day I felt like God truly spoke this into my heart and said, that is a gift. Why are you complaining? I gave you a gift. And it's like anything, right? Like an iPhone. We have to learn how to use, it's a tool. It's a powerful tool. You got to learn how to use all of the intricacies of the iPhone, right? And empath is the same way. We have to learn how to hone in on that skill of loving people and absorbing what we can absorb from them, but also putting boundaries in place, which is a really hard thing to navigate. But it's like your superpower. It's like if you've ever watched like the Marvel movies, where it's like a lot of the superheroes, they have to hone in on their gift. They have to hone in on what it is to be that gift that they've been given, and they can misuse it a lot of times in a lot of their situations. But it's crazy when you think about it, because I thought that was the best way to describe an empath. It's true. There's sometimes unspoken energy. I can walk into a place and feel the weight of the energy. And I think that is part of being an empath. And I think sometimes resonating, like you and I being empaths, we're able to feel other people's emotion, but not everybody's able to do that. But I think this is where grace comes in, and having a little bit of grace for people that, again, your circumstances may look different than mine, but I understand that what you're going through is tough. And I'll just say this one more thing about trauma, because I've thought long and hard about this. The thing with trauma, people can say, oh, you had that happen to you. Doesn't seem that bad to me, But the truth of the matter is, trauma is as bad as we make it. I mean, the thing is, I could have a certain situation happen to me, and you could look at it and say, that's very mild. But going on my own life journey and the things that's happened to me in my life or whatever, that could make that thing very traumatic. Plus, also, my own physical makeup could make that thing more traumatic. So it's hard to point your finger at something and say, oh, yeah, like you said, just get over it. There's nothing makes me more angry than someone that says, just get over it. No, this is my trauma. Like, I had a hard time. Like, I wish it was that easy. I wish I could just snap my fingers and it's gone, but it doesn't work that way. It takes time and effort and energy to heal these things. And just having grace for people that are in the midst of their trauma, even if it doesn't seem like it should bother them so bad, you have no idea till you've walked in their shoes, till you've walked in their path, and you know the things that have happened to them prior, the way they were raised, the mindsets that they've been taught. Like, you don't know any of those things.
So true. And you're right. I had a long talk with God. I'm like, this empathy thing and being an empath, this kind of sucks, all right? Because, like, if you don't know how to control it, it can really overtake everything. And so that was part of my problem, right? I took care of everybody else's stuff, but I didn't take care of me. And so if you're an extrovert and an empath, make sure you know how to put your shields up so you protect yourself. It's really important that we take care of ourselves. And, the buzzwords today are self-love and self-care, but they're not really buzzwords. Like, if you are not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. And, if you have an extroverted friend, start checking in on them. Like, they're probably like laughing and carrying on, but you know what? If people had taken maybe a step back and looked at my situation, like, I completely checked out. I didn't put up any holiday decorations. I didn't want to do anything. I wanted to lay in my recliner. I was like, don't talk to me. And I got excessively drunk in New York City and lost my cell phone. I should have known at that point something was going on. So if you see those kind of behaviors in your friends, like, patience, grace, give yourself patience and grace, set your boundaries. Do not judge your friends for what their trauma is, because, like Amber said, we all have different types of trauma, and what may really have sucked bad for us may not have sucked bad for you. But it is not your job to judge what somebody's going through. Be kind. Mm-hmm. Kindness, and I go back to being kind. Being kind goes a long way.
Mm-hmm. Until someone opens their mouth and starts to share their story, you don't know what someone's been through. You could look at someone on the surface and think, that person's got it all together. They seem like so happy they have it all together. The family life, the finances, the career, like they have everything. But you have no idea what's happening inside. You have no idea. And until they share that with you, you don't know. So just like you said, being kind, just saying nice things to people. If I'm out in public and I notice something, yesterday I had gone in to get a business outfit because I'm doing a speech in the next 2 weeks. So I needed to grab a jacket, like a business jacket. And there was a girl in there, and this girl, like, she's a black girl. She had the most beautiful skin tone. And she had this coral, like, jacket and pantsuit that she was holding up next to her. And that coral's a hard color to wear. I'm just going to say, I can't pull it off. But she looked beautiful. Her skin tone was perfect against the coral. And I'm like, I thought it, so why not just say it? I was like, just by the way, that looks really good on you. That color looks nice on you. Little things like that, I feel like just goes a long way. I have no idea. She might have been having a great day and that comment went right over her head. Or she might have been having a really rough day and been like, oh, that was really nice. Like, stranger just come up and said that. I try to go out of my way just to say nice things to people when you notice it, when you think it, because the dialogue is always going on in our head, right? And this goes back to, we can beat ourselves up. That same dialogue can be like, oh, I look like this today, or I look like that, or I'm bloated, or I'm got acne on my face, or whatever. We can go back and forth beating ourselves up. Then we can look at other people and be like, oh, they have the prettiest eyes. But we never say that to them. Why not?
And it goes back to, like, if you see somebody that's homeless homeless people, and you're always like, oh, they're all mentally ill, they're blah, 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 like, why can't they find a place to live? Once again, you have no idea what their circumstances are, okay? Mm-hmm. Be nice. Like, are they doing anything to bother you? If not, just walk around them, say hello, be nice to people, because we're all kind of going through something in our own way. Some of us hide it. Okay, we probably shouldn't. But, some of us are very loud about it. Be nice. Mm-hmm. Please.
It's so good. It's so simple. We make it so difficult, don't we?
We do. Like, it's not that hard. Like, okay, if you're going to a store, right? Everybody's got a name tag on. Address the person who's behind the counter by their name. You're probably going to be the only one that does that all day, but God, it makes people feel good.
Yeah. Who is it? There's a book. I think it's How to Win Friends and Influence People. He talks about that. Like, the most important word that you can say to someone is their name.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's true. Like, just be nice. People, like, I still have hard days. And, I still deal with all my mental messiness that goes in my head. But, like, if somebody says something really nice to me, God, it, like, changes the whole tone of, even if I'm in my head again. And we all get in our own head.
So I have a question for you, because this is something that I'm genuinely curious about, because I've struggled in this area. Running a mental health podcast and being an empath, like, how have you learned to manage that? Because I find it very difficult sometimes.
Okay, so this is going to kind of blow you away. We typically record 5 to 6 episodes one Saturday a month. And so after that day, I am completely tapped. But the way that we scheduled it, we have like 15 to 20 minute breaks in between each recording. If it's nice outside, which it is now, I will go outside during those 15 minutes just to ground myself. And listening to the stories, I know that what our guest is explaining or talking about is going to help somebody else down who's listening. Mm-hmm. So I actually have to put my shield up a little bit, because a lot of our guests that come on have really hard, difficult stories, like even harder than mine. but they're still here today. And I offer myself patience and grace. And I will say I've cried on air. A lot of stories are very touching. And so I give myself permission to feel. And I give myself permission to be an advocate for that person, right? Because that's kind of our job with our podcast, is giving voice to what people are really going through. Because there's so much stigma around mental health still. It's better now than it was like 3 years ago. But we have to be good to our hearts, especially the empaths in us. We have to be good to us. So if that means, like, if you're doing an interview, this happened last month, I had to put my shields up a little bit because I got super triggered. But what I do the day after recording is I always make sure we do something fun. Whether it's going out and seeing the waterfalls, or going fishing, or putting on my VR headset and just checking out for a couple hours. Yes, I'm 61 and I still play with a VR headset. Maybe in a sitting position because, you know what, I'm afraid of falling. But offering ourselves patience and grace, and also learning, because we can learn from our guests of maybe how they have been able to compartmentalize what's going on. And so you have to do that for yourself. And also, for me, I'm fortunate that I have a co-host, so we can bounce stuff off of each other. And within each of our episodes, we also have a little bit of laughter. Yes, we laugh at some hard stuff, but laughter is healing. And so that helps. But after we're done recording, I always go and have a good meal. I spend time with my wife, and I'm grateful for being able to do this.
Yeah, that's great advice. I go through stages. And usually I can hold it together pretty good on camera. But I think the first 2 years of this podcast, I really made it a point I was going to edit everything myself, because I wanted to become a better speaker and a better listener. And I wanted to see the areas where I had flaws. And, but in that, you also hear the stories, which some are really hard to hear. And then you hear them again when you're editing. So it become taxing sometimes, and still does. I'm not going to lie. I get a little bit some days I want to quit. But when you have a bigger purpose, you can't. You can't.
I get really triggered, but it was funny. It was a couple of weeks ago. I walked in on my wife, and she was listening to our podcast. And this is someone who'd never listened to a podcast a day in her life. Well, the rule in the house is you can listen to that podcast, but I can't be in the room, because by that time I've already listened to the episode 8,700 times, and you may have the same thing. It's it's hard to hear that back, right? The questions you asked in your own voice. And then there's other people out there listening to that. But even she said that she's 10 years older than I am, and she gets a lot out of it. But she also has recognized when I'm kind of tapped out. And so she makes it a point to make sure that I'm okay.
It's important to have people like that in your life too, to check on you. I read Think and Grow Rich, which is not a mental health book, but he talks about in business to find your I don't remember exactly what he calls it in that book, but your dream team. So it's the 5 people that are you familiar with this?
Yeah, find your tribe. I have my tribe.
Well, he talks about in there, it can be people that are even past, that have already passed away, but you do this mental exercise where you go in and you consult with these 5 people. It could be a celebrity, it could be Oprah Winfrey, it could be whoever, Princess Diana, whoever it can be. But you go in and I guess the main thing is asking what would this person do in this situation? And he's approaching this from a business angle, but I don't know why you couldn't. if you could also approach this, I'm thinking from a mental health angle as well, like how would this be handled? Or how can I reframe this? Or how would this person, if I look up to this person and how everything they've overcome, how would they reframe this to make it, to turn it from pain into purpose? Because that's really what we're trying to do. So maybe I'm going to try to do that.
Find your tribe. I'm telling you, like, I'll call Dirty Skittles the day after we record just to check in on her. She does the same with me. And even though I've been away from the company for 2 years, we still call each other every day. Still have those irreverent, laughing conversations. But, like, find that one person that can, like, help you kind of see the other side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's important. Well, this is why having like fellowship with other people is so important. Like having those people that can encourage you when you're down. So you're right. Find your tribe.
Find your tribe.
So Gretchen, I know we're getting here at the hour. I do want to give you the opportunity to share. I don't think we ever even mentioned the name of your podcast. So why don't you tell my listeners where they could hear more from you? I know you're active on LinkedIn as well. So just tell my listeners where they can find you.
Yeah, so the name of the podcast is Shit That Goes On in Our Heads, and it's shit with an exclamation point. We also have a website. It's goesononourheads.net. And we have our about out there. We have some resources and everything. We also have a newsletter. And then if you want to learn a little bit more about my company, the company is Schoser Talent and Wellness Solutions. And you can find us at schosersolutions.com. And I'm an open book. Like I have zero fear of sharing my life.
Mm-hmm. There's power in that. When you get to the point where you're just like, I don't care if people judge me anymore. This is something I had to get over.
Yeah.
I think we all do. We all have to get to that point in our life where we get over it. But just where we don't, it's like my story is now used for impact. And there's no shame around it anymore.
None. And if you do listen to the podcast, like think about sitting around the fire shooting it with the friends, right? Like we're not scripted, we're not clinical by any means. And we enjoy sharing these stories with the world because we're helping people.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Well, you're making impact. You're doing amazing things in the world, and I'm grateful for you, just for your heart behind it, and just for everything that you're doing. And I'm so grateful that you're here. I know I will just say this because I feel like there's this thing I was reading recently about quantum physics and quantum entanglement or something to that effect. For the scientists out there, I don't know exactly, but I know that the principle was this: if you have a desire to create something, that means someone else in the world has a desire that they need that thing. Like that is the idea of quantum or whatever. Well, my thought is this when it comes especially to suicide, is that you're put here for a purpose and a reason. And there's somebody somewhere that needs you. By taking that away, you're not only hurting, like you're removing yourself from the world that needs you. And so I know when you're in the middle of depression, we're not thinking about other people needing us, but maybe we are, because this life is about finding purpose. And I think that I have found great joy in my life, even among all the struggle, in having purpose. So I think it's important for people to navigate that and find where they fit in and what they're really here to do, because then it's like it gives you tunnel vision to go in that direction. And I'm grateful for what you're doing, and I'm grateful that you found that purpose, because it sounds like you're right where you need to be, doing exactly what you need to be doing.
And I'm so grateful to be on your podcast. It was such an honor, and for me, I'm grateful to be alive every day.
I'm grateful for you. One last question I do want to ask you is if you kind of had a big, huge takeaway, like something that we've kind of shared here or not, that you'd like to leave my audience with, what would that be?
The one big thing, like if you haven't started setting boundaries, start setting them now. Don't wait until you're 60 to figure it out. If you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, do it now because your life will be so much better. And just remember, you're enough.
That's good. That's good, simple, but effective. You are enough. That's really awesome. Gretchen, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure talking with you. I mean, literally the energy here, we could go all day long just chatting. But catch Gretchen on her podcast, The Shit We Deal With.
It's shit that goes on in our heads.
Oh, shit that goes on in our heads. That's it.
Literally.
I just remembered the shit part, but it makes it memorable. Shit with an exclamation point. Hey, yeah. I can remember that. Search it up. I'm sure it'll come up. But Gretchen, it's been such a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Hey there, friend. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending this time here with us on Through the Trauma podcast. Your presence means more than you know. If this episode has spoke to you or gave you hope or made you feel just a little bit less alone, then I would love it if you would take a second, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who truly needs to hear it. Every share, every comment, every listen, it all helps our message get out and reach those who truly need it the most. Healing happens inside of a community, and together we are breaking the silence and creating space for transformation. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. You are not alone.